Thank you very much. First of all, say that as a member of the delegation, we thought we were extremely well led, if I may say so, intellectually. I think that it was good that we had a leader who understood the other side, and the other side could also understand him. I think this was quite something to appreciate. Most of the things that you've related are those which one would like to say. I just wanted to come out with some pinpoints on particularly the London meeting, which was very important. It was interesting, Mr. Minister, I think you recall, that the Secretary, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, kept on saying when we establish relations. He did not say if we establish relations. He says when we establish relations, and we were discussing just how the two parties could relate to each other. I thought that was encouraging. He also kept on saying within the next, is it weeks or months?
Weeks.
Within the next weeks that we will establish relations, we can do the following and so forth. I think that is very important, because I think all of us are asking, particularly you who were not there, what then is the outcome. The outcome is, as he has said, the Minister, a framework is there, but we were encouraged that we are now at a point where we are waiting to do things which will establish relations at an ambassadorial level with Britain. That's number one. Number two, I was very, very happy that instead of belaboring political points, instead of belaboring, oh, why did you do this, why did you do the other, this was not the stance of the British. The stance of the British was, how can we strengthen relations politically, yes, but particularly economic. The meeting was particularly about economic affairs. How can this be done? Can we do this? Can we do that? And so forth. So it was a meeting that we got the impression that we are not expected to fall down and kiss the ground and apologize, because there was no need for it. We are still friends, and we will, in fact, establish relations. As he has said, on the final points of just what we discussed, of course, we have to relate this to the President. On the meeting that we had in Brussels, these were the most interesting thing that we found out is that they already knew what we had discussed in London. So it was easy for us to continue to discuss with them, because it was a question of rehashing what we said in London. In Brussels, as you know, Brussels is giving us a lot of budgetary support, which has been suspended. Now, the point there is that they emphasized, I think in London also, that none of the donors have decided to stop aid to Malawi. This is not so. What they're looking at is the budgetary support, when it can be resumed again, and what we could agree to be doing together when that has been resumed. This was true in Brussels, and it was true in London as well. As you know, there's a lot of money now in Brussels that we could have. In fact, we will be having close to about $200 million, which we need very badly. And the discussion was how one can establish relations in such a way that we move ahead. They were particularly concerned about our role with the IMF, and we were able to tell them that our Minister of Finance has already talked to the IMF, and in fact the Cabinet has given him a blank check to go and discuss and agree with the IMF. That pleased them a lot, because they thought that probably that was not going to be the case. The political ones, the political people that we had, that the minister mentioning they call him a managing director, I think.
Yeah.
Managing director in the IMF, in the EU, who is responsible for foreign affairs. That I think some of us left it to the bigger minds on this, and it was very interesting to listen to that meeting, because again it was a question of an exchange of views, and I got the impression that probably some people may not be quite aware about why it is important for the leadership to have a high intellect understanding. And I thought that we have always been calling him Peter, so I nearly called him Peter. The minister there, I took a back seat, and I just enjoyed listening to what the two had to say. On the other meetings that we had in Brussels, there again, in Brussels, again they were very much economic. Let me end, Minister, by emphasizing again, because I think out there people have said this was a failure, and when we read that we laughed, and I think the British too would have laughed, because I have attended a lot of high-level meetings in my life, and I can tell you that this was one of the most positive meetings that I have attended. And I am quite sure that when things are realigned again, we will have even a stronger Malawi than we had before.